Welcome to our immigration briefing show. Today, we're diving into some hot topics. First up, President Trump's ongoing feud with Harvard University isn't just about funding, it's shaking up the entire U.S. international education scene. His attacks, including cutting funding and visa restrictions, are causing a ripple effect, making U.S. universities less diverse and risking their global reputation. International students from China and India, who bring in so much cultural and financial value, are feeling the squeeze, and this could weaken America's soft power in the long run. Next, in Louisiana, a legal battle is brewing over a jail policy that limits cooperation with federal immigration authorities. The state's attorney general is challenging the sheriff's sanctuary policy, which aims to protect undocumented inmates. With a court hearing scheduled soon, this clash highlights the ongoing tug-of-war between local and federal immigration enforcement, especially amid recent legislation and political pressures. It's a classic case of local policies versus state laws, and the outcome could set a big precedent. Finally, we look at Australia's booming suburbs like Melton, where rapid population growth is causing both excitement and headaches. More migrants are moving in, driven by affordable land and diverse communities, but this growth strains infrastructure like roads and public transport. While some debate whether to slow down immigration to ease housing pressures, communities are embracing diversity and opportunity. It's a complex balancing act. More people mean more vibrancy, but also more challenges for urban planning and sustainability. Stay tuned for more insights. Please continue to watch for the full details. The South China Morning Post vividly illustrates how President Donald Trump's reckless confrontation with Harvard University exemplifies a broader assault on education and immigration policies that has ripple effects across Asia, particularly Hong Kong. Trump's aggressive tactics, including cutting federal funds and threatening tax exemptions, aim to coerce Harvard into complying with federal hiring, admissions, and curriculum demands. This confrontation is intertwined with a wider crackdown on foreign students, especially from China and India, which has led to visa revocations and increased uncertainty for international students and their families. As a result, the U.S.'s reputation as a hub of diversity and soft power is at risk, with potential long-term consequences for international exchanges and the U.S. economy, given the significant contributions of Chinese students. Despite the political rhetoric, the decline in international student numbers, down 4% last year, foreshadows a shift in the patterns of international education, with other nations poised to benefit from America's retreat, thereby diminishing its global influence. Yahoo's coverage of the Louisiana sanctuary policy highlights a tense legal battle that underscores the national debate over immigration enforcement and local autonomy. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrell's push to dismantle the Orleans Parish Sheriff's policy, which generally prohibits direct federal immigration enforcement within the jail, reflects the broader Trump-era push for local law enforcement to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. This conflict is rooted in a 2013 civil rights settlement that limited ICE detainer enforcement, but recent legislation and political pressure aim to reinstate or expand cooperation. Sheriff Susan Hudson's stance reveals the practical strain on local resources, emphasizing that immigration enforcement is beyond the capacity of her overstretched jail staff. This legal showdown epitomizes the ongoing clash between federal immigration policies and local jurisdictions, with significant implications for civil rights, community trust, and the future of sanctuary policies nationwide. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation paints a compelling picture of how migration fuels growth and challenges in Australia's outer suburbs, particularly in Melton and other rapidly expanding areas. Sonia Khan's story exemplifies the positive aspects of migration, showcasing a diverse, vibrant community that values multiculturalism and affordability. However, this growth has strained infrastructure, leading to traffic congestion and inadequate public transport, revealing the complex trade-offs of rapid population increases. The debate over immigration's role in Australia's housing crisis is intense, with some advocating for reduced migration to ease affordability pressures, while experts warn that the issue is multifaceted. They emphasize that housing shortages stem from decades of underbuilding, inefficient use of inner-city space, and demographic shifts, rather than migration alone. Public sentiment reflects this tension, with many Australians feeling the pinch of rising costs and overcrowding, prompting calls for more sustainable migration policies that balance economic benefits with community capacity. Al Jazeera reports that the current political climate in the United States is teetering on the brink of a constitutional crisis, as President Trump and the judiciary find themselves embroiled in a deepening conflict. Leon Fresco, an immigration lawyer, emphasizes the gravity of the situation, highlighting how the administration's confrontational stance threatens the independence of the courts and the fundamental principle that all immigrants are entitled to due process. Meanwhile, Alan Orr, the immigration chairperson for the National Bar Association, voices concerns that Trump's attacks on judges are not just political posturing but could undermine the very fabric of the U.S. legal system, raising fears of a crisis that could have lasting repercussions for American democracy. The South China Morning Post provides a vivid snapshot of Hong Kong's post-pandemic recovery as residents embark on a record-breaking outbound travel spree during the Easter break. Between Thursday and the second day of the holiday, over 1.84 million trips were made, marking a 10% increase from last year and a 20% rise compared to 2018, before social unrest and COVID-19 disruptions. The figures reveal a strong desire among Hong Kong's roughly 7.5 million population to reconnect with the world, with more than half of these departures taking place at land checkpoints bordering Shenzhen. The surge continued into Easter Sunday, with over 302,000 departures recorded by mid-afternoon, reflecting a resilient appetite for travel despite lingering pandemic effects. In contrast, inbound tourism remains modest, with fewer than 400,000 arrivals over the same period, underscoring ongoing challenges for Hong Kong's tourism sector. The Sydney Morning Herald vividly exposes a disturbing reality in the United States under the Trump administration, where the boundaries of law and morality are being blurred in the name of national security. The article recounts how the U.S. is outsourcing its detention and deportation processes to El Salvador, where prisons are described as hellholes designed to eliminate detainees without due process. A chilling example is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a man with no criminal record, who was unlawfully deported and imprisoned in El Salvador on false gang allegations, only to be later released after legal intervention. The narrative underscores how the administration openly seeks to expand these practices, viewing them as a means to bypass American laws, with President Trump explicitly expressing interest in creating more prisons for U.S. citizens and asserting that those deemed undesirable have no rights. This strategy, detailed through interviews and legal cases, reveals a frightening shift toward authoritarian tactics, with the administration enjoying the power to disappear individuals beyond the reach of justice, illustrating a dangerous erosion of legal protections and human rights. CBC offers a compelling look into Canada's immigration challenges amid a population surge that has outpaced planning and infrastructure. The stories of newcomers like Joanna Valamutu and Sanjeev Kumar depict a nation grappling with the consequences of rapid growth, including rising racism, housing shortages, and employment struggles. Valamutu laments the federal government's missteps in managing immigration levels, which have led to social divisions, while Kumar highlights the economic toll, with international students and temporary workers facing limited pathways to permanent residency and increased competition for jobs. The article emphasizes that Canada's current approach to immigration and settlement services is strained, with funding cuts and insufficient integration strategies threatening to undermine the country's reputation as a welcoming society. The narrative calls for a more thoughtful, phased approach to immigration, stressing that sustainable growth depends on effective planning, investment in settlement programs, and inclusive policies that balance economic needs with social cohesion. CBC also sheds light on Nova Scotia's skilled trade sector, revealing a paradox where high demand for tradespeople is hampered by long waitlists at the Nova Scotia Community College. Despite efforts to expand training, adding hundreds of seats and offering accelerated courses, demand continues to outstrip supply, with wait times stretching into years for critical programs like electrical and industrial trades. The province faces a looming labor shortage, with estimates of needing 15,000 new workers by 2034, driven by retirements and infrastructure projects. The article underscores that addressing this gap requires more than just expanding college programs. Alternative pathways such as direct apprenticeships and employer-led short-term courses are vital. Provincial initiatives, including funding for new training facilities and targeted recruitment, aim to bridge the gap, but the overarching message stresses that strategic, long-term planning is essential to meet the urgent needs of Nova Scotia's economy and ensure a sustainable skilled workforce for the future. BBC reports on the dire consequences of the UK's austerity measures on immigration legal aid, revealing that since 2018, over 60% of legal aid providers in Wales have shut their doors. This alarming decline has left vulnerable asylum seekers and immigrants without essential legal support, forcing many to endure what volunteers describe as emotional torture. Asylum seekers face months, sometimes years, of waiting in limbo without proper legal representation, losing faith and hope in the system. The UK government has announced plans to increase funding and legal aid rates, but advocates argue these measures are insufficient, warning that the shrinking legal sector jeopardizes access to justice and exposes individuals to exploitation and prolonged suffering. Nikkei Asia highlights the resurgence of Japan's traditional machiya houses, thanks to a wave of Chinese buyers led by entrepreneurs like Yuichi Ishikura. Ishikura, who transformed Kyoto's aging wooden townhouses into successful ghost houses, exemplifies a new appreciation for Japan's architectural heritage. Since purchasing his first machiya in 2015, he has renovated over 60 such properties across Kyoto, aiming to become the leading operator of machiya accommodations nationwide. This trend reflects a broader cultural revival and economic opportunity, as Chinese investors seek authentic Japanese experiences, breathing new life into the historic neighborhoods and preserving centuries-old craftsmanship amid modern tourism demands. Australian Broadcasting Corporation covers the widespread protests across the United States against President Donald Trump's administration, illustrating a nation divided over issues of democracy, civil rights, and government overreach. Thousands gathered in cities like New York, Boston, Portland, and San Francisco, voicing concerns about civil liberties, immigration policies, and the erosion of checks and balances. Protesters, some invoking revolutionary ideals, denounced efforts to deport immigrants, cut social programs, and diminish federal oversight, fearing the rise of a police state. Elderly veterans, families, and activists carried signs demanding justice, underscoring a collective fight to defend constitutional rights and oppose what they see as authoritarian tendencies threatening American democracy. South China Morning Post vividly captures the fervor of recent protests across American cities, where thousands took to the streets to voice their opposition to Donald Trump's policies. In New York, demonstrators gathered outside the main library, wielding signs like "No Kings in America" and "Resist Tyranny," condemning Trump's immigration deportations and his perceived assault on constitutional norms. The Washington rally echoed similar concerns, with participants warning that Trump's actions threaten the rule of law and individual rights, likening the current political climate to the rise of fascism, as expressed by a Holocaust survivor's daughter. These protests, organized under the banner of a decentralized movement called 50501, aim to galvanize a broad coalition against what they see as anti-democratic and plutocratic policies, emphasizing nonviolence and the importance of defending democratic institutions amid ongoing controversy over immigration, science funding, and executive overreach. Meanwhile, the Sydney Morning Herald reports on a pivotal legal showdown involving Venezuelan migrants and the Trump administration's aggressive immigration tactics. The U.S. Supreme Court issued a temporary halt to the deportations of Venezuelans accused of gang affiliations, highlighting the tension between executive power and judicial authority. This emergency intervention underscores the administration's controversial use of the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, a wartime law, to expedite deportations without proper judicial review. Lawyers and families argue that many of these migrants are falsely accused and denied fair process, raising fears of a constitutional crisis should Trump refuse to comply with the court's stay. The case exemplifies the broader debate over immigration enforcement, executive overreach, and the potential for clashes between branches of government, as the administration seeks to deport suspected gang members to Central America under a law historically reserved for wartime emergencies. The Sydney Morning Herald also delves into Victoria's complex political landscape, revealing how recent electoral dynamics threaten the long-standing dominance of the Labour Party in the state. Once considered a safe Labour stronghold, Victoria has experienced a shift driven by pandemic-related discontent, economic pressures from rapid population growth, and infrastructure challenges. The state's post-pandemic frustrations, highlighted by underwhelming recovery, youth crime, and transportation woes, have eroded voter confidence, especially in outer suburbs where residents feel neglected and overwhelmed. Premier Jacinta Allen's government faces declining support, with polls indicating potential losses that could mirror the 1990 federal election upheaval, when anti-Labour sentiment swept through Victoria. The political future remains uncertain, as voters grapple with the legacy of lockdowns and infrastructure strains, and as opposition parties capitalize on dissatisfaction, raising questions about whether Victoria's political landscape is on the cusp of a significant transformation from its traditional two-party dominance to a more fragmented, minority-driven system. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6-do brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6-do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6-do brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6-do brief via email.